Welcome to Forbidden Facts, the channel where we dig into the shadows of history to uncover the hidden truths, the dark secrets, and the stories too wild to stay buried. Today, we're stepping into a tale of revolution, bloodshed, and mystery that spans continents and decades. Our subject? Fusako Shigenobu, known as the Black Widow of Kyoto, Japan's most wanted terrorist. Get ready for a wild ride through a life that blurred the lines between hero and villain. Let's dive in. Who is Fusako Shigenobu? Fusako Shigenobu. Her name alone sends chills down the spine of those who remember the chaos she unleashed. Born in 1945 in Tokyo, Japan, she wasn't just another face in the crowd. She was the mastermind behind the Japanese Red Army, a group that turned the 1970s and 80s into a battlefield of ideals and violence. To some, she was a freedom fighter standing against oppression. To others, a cold-blooded terrorist with no regard for innocent lives. But who is she really? To answer that, we need to go back to where it all began. Early life and political awakening. Imagine Tokyo, 1945. World War II has just ended, and Japan is a shattered nation. Cities in rubble, families starving, and hope in short supply. Into this world comes Fusako Shigenobu, born to a grocer and a former soldier. Her father wasn't just any soldier, he was a major in the Imperial Japanese Army and a right-wing fanatic who had once joined a failed coup against the government. Growing up, Fusako saw her father's pride turn to bitterness as he struggled to make ends meet. But while he clung to old imperial dreams, she looked forward to a Japan free of poverty and foreign control. Meiji University, studying economics and history. That's when everything changed. The 60s in Japan were electric. Students flooded the streets, protesting against US military bases, the Vietnam War, and a government they saw as corrupt. Fusako wasn't just watching, she was in the thick of it, dodging tear gas and shouting slogans. To pay her tuition, she worked nights at a soy sauce factory where she faced harassment that only fueled her anger. She joined the Red Army faction, a radical communist group that believed peaceful protests weren't enough. They wanted revolution, and they wanted it now. Fusako climbed the ranks fast, joining the Central Committee. But she grew tired of the group's infighting and macho attitude. She had bigger plans. Formation of the Japanese Red Army. In 1971, Fusako Shigenobu took a leap that would change history. She broke away from the Red Army faction and, with her husband Tsuyoshi Okudera, founded the Japanese Red Army, the JRA. Their mission was simple but insane: overthrow Japan's monarchy and government, then spark a global communist revolution. But Japan wasn't big enough for her vision. That same year, she and her crew packed up and moved to Lebanon. Why Lebanon? Because it was ground zero for the Palestinian struggle. And Fusako saw a chance to link her fight with theirs. She teamed up with the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, or PFLP, a militant group that gave the JRA training, guns, and a new home. From Lebanon, Fusako became the voice of the JRA, writing manifestos, planning attacks, and dreaming of a world in flames. She wasn't just a leader, she was the heart of a movement that was about to go global. Major terrorist attacks. The Japanese Red Army didn't mess around. Their attacks were bold, bloody, and meant to grab the world's attention. Let's break down the worst of them. Lore Airport Massacre, 1972. 30th May 1972. Lore Airport, Tel Aviv. 3 JRA members, fresh from PFLP training, walked into the terminal like they owned it. Then they opened fire. Machine guns blazing, grenades exploding. In minutes, 26 people were dead. 17 of them Christian pilgrims from Puerto Rico on a peaceful trip. Another 80 were injured, sprawled across a floor stained with blood. One attacker killed himself with a grenade. Another was gunned down. The third, Kozo Okamoto, got caught. But Fusako, she was safe in Lebanon, pulling the strings. The world was horrified. Israel, the US, Japan all demanded justice. She didn't flinch. French Embassy Siege, 1974, The Hague, Netherlands. 3 JRA operatives burst into the French embassy, taking 11 hostages, including the ambassador. Their demand was clear: free a jailed comrade or everyone dies. For 5 days, the world held its breath as negotiators scrambled. France gave in, releasing the prisoner. The attackers flew off to Syria with $1 million ransom. Fusako didn't pull the trigger, but she planned it all. After this, Interpol slapped her name on their most wanted list. She was officially a ghost they couldn't catch. Other notable attacks. The JRA kept the hits coming. In 1975, they stormed the US consulate in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, taking 50 hostages, including the consul. They traded them for 7 Red Army prisoners in Japan. In 1988, they bombed a US military club in Naples, Italy, killing 5. Each attack was a scream to the world. The JRA was here, and they weren't stopping. Fusako's legend grew, feared, hated, and untouchable. Life in hiding and arrest. For almost 30 years, Fusako Shigenobu was a phantom. She bounced between Lebanon, Syria, maybe even North Korea, always out of reach. She raised her daughter, May, in this shadowy world, born to a Palestinian fighter and living under aliases. But on 8th November 2000, it all crashed down. She slipped into Japan, disguised as a man, and checked into a hotel near Osaka. Her mistake? Smoking cigarettes in her signature way, puffing them like a pipe, blowing perfect smoke rings. A hotel worker tipped off the cops. Osaka police swarmed in. As they dragged her away, she raised her hands and shouted, "I'll fight on." The Black Widow's reign was over, but her story wasn't. Trial and imprisonment. In 2006, after years of legal battles, Fusako faced justice. She was convicted for her role in the French embassy siege and sentenced to 20 years. The court couldn't pin the Loure airport massacre on her directly, but The Hague was enough. In prison, she didn't fade away. She wrote books, poetry, memoirs, and reflected on her life. In a 2017 letter, she admitted the JRA's revolution failed and that innocent people died for it. But an apology? Not quite. Her daughter, May, stood by her, calling her a misunderstood activist. Release and legacy. 20th May 2022. Fusako Shigenobu, now 76 and weakened by cancer, walked out of prison. A small crowd cheered as she stepped into the sunlight, wearing a Palestinian keffiyeh. She spoke softly. "I'm sorry for hurting innocent people, but I'll keep reflecting and living with curiosity." For victims' families, it stung. The JRA's body count, dozens dead, hundreds hurt, still haunts. 7 members remain fugitives, hunted by Tokyo police. Fusako's free, but her shadow lingers. So what's her legacy? A rebel who shook the world, or a terrorist who broke it? That's for you to decide. There you have it, the rise, reign, and reckoning of the Black Widow of Kyoto. Fusako Shigenobu's life is a twisted knot of ideals and violence, a story that forces us to ask, where's the line between fighting for freedom and destroying it? Thanks for joining us on Forbidden Facts. If this dive into Japan's darkest history hooked you, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Until next time, keep chasing the forbidden.